Okay, let's learn about standard modules in VB.NET. Let's learn to use modules. And here you'll also get an idea of the significance of the keyword that we've been using, public versus private. So first of all, recall that the subprocedures and functions that we've used were always between the beginning line public class form1 and end class. So everything was between here and here. If he says if you had it outside of there, you would get those underlines, those blue underlines under your code. In other words, if you define these functions or subs outside of the class form1 and end class lines, then anytime you reference those functions, for example, here when we called error check, if error check was not defined in the appropriate place in between the inside the class, then if we reference error check here, it's not going to know what error check is. Same thing here. If this definition had not been inside the class definition, then this subprocedure called add numbers, when we call it here in the button click, this wouldn't be recognized because it wouldn't know where it was. Same thing here. We have a function called add two numbers. If this hadn't been defined within the class definition, then when we call it here, Visual Studio wouldn't know what it was and would underscore it. However, when we use modules, there's a way to get around that. So there's a way to move the functions and the subprocedures to something called a module, and keep all your functions and subprocedures there, and then you kind of have a nice list of them, and you can even export that list and use it elsewhere. So we want to put our subprocedures and functions in a module if possible. So we're going to talk about something called the standard module. So let's start a new project and add a button to the form like this. So he says just to add a new module to your project, if you're using version 2008 or 2012, you click Project from the menu bar, and from the menu you click Add Module. So I'm using 2012, so that should work for mine. So I'll do that, but if you're using 2010, he says just click Project and Add New Item. So if it's 2000, what is this? He said you'll see something like this, or this. So in mine, I did project and I have this. And you just click add. Actually, let's do that again and give it the name that he suggests as well. So he suggests calling it mod verify. So let's do that. Like this. And you'll see that this appears now. I think I forgot to delete the other one, but you'll see that this one appears here. Let me just delete this one. So you should have something like that. So he says if you look at the Solutions Explorer, you should see it here. And now let's put in our add numbers sub-procedure. So let's look at this. This is we're adding numbers. We're using by value. I'm sorry. The name of the it's a sub-procedure. Its name is this. It takes a one parameter, which should be an integer. It's by value, so it's not affecting any variable outside that might be called this. We're taking this, whatever the user puts in there. We're adding 10 to that, putting that's the answer. Answer has been declared inside the sub-procedure as an integer, and we're giving the answer in a message box. So he says your coding, which is in the mod verify, should look like this. Coding window. So it should be like this. Okay, now go back to the button and put this in. Call this function that we just created and put the integer 10 as the argument to this sub-procedure. So go back to here, double click the button and put that in there. Call add numbers 10. Okay, and we still get this blue line here. It doesn't know what this is or where it is. So he says what VB is saying with that blue line is that it can't see your subroutine from inside the button code. It thinks that you haven't got a sub called add numbers. The reason it can't see it is we made sub private. Only code inside mod verify. Only code inside the mod verify module can see a private sub. So if we had code, some kind of code in here, then it could see this, but only code inside here can see it. So the trick is to make it public so that this sub-procedure can be seen outside of this module. Now if you go back and check inside the button code, it's no longer highlighted with a blue underline. And if we go back and we try the code, we get 20, so it's working. So it found it. Okay, now we're going to add a function as opposed to a sub-procedure. Now this is this website they're doing. This is a British programmer, and they're talking about postcodes or zip codes or Yubin in Britain, which is different than maybe other places. Anyway, they're gonna make a function to verify the postal code. And this is going to be, again, a function. We are going to make it public this time. It's going to have input a string, which is going to be called or referred to as postcode within the function. And we're treating it by value. Okay, so what we do is we take whatever the user puts in, which we refer to it as postcode in our code for this function. So it appears here, and that's inside this string convert function. And what it's going to do is take what's put in here, and it's going to convert it to uppercase. So that's what this string convert will do. And then we're going to take the result and reassign it to postcode, so that now postcode is all uppercase, which is what they wanted to do here. And then we're going to return that value with this function. So remember that if we write this function now somewhere in our code, remember we're just defining it here, we haven't used it, but if we use it and we write it somewhere in our code, then first of all, since it's in the module, not in the class definition, it needs to be public, but it is. So if we write it somewhere in our class, then what will be returned is this. And what will have been input, well, we're going to take whatever is input and we're going to return it with capital letters. So we have the code here, the function here, which is in mod verify, and then you can test it by applying it to this, where this is here, and in other words, where this comes from, whatever is in text box 1. So the user enters something into text box 1, so we need a text box 1, and then it gets trimmed, and then which just gets rid of any spaces on either side of it, and then it gets deposited in here, and then we put that into our new function, which is in a module, in our module, and we assign the result. Remember, it's a function, so we can assign the result to this, and then we put that in text box 1. So we convert it to we convert what's in there to capital letters, and this code is all inside a button, so that when we click this button, this happens. Now going up to his explanation, going back to his explanation, he says all the function does is check the postcode to see if the letters in it are all capitals. That's because quite often people use, so this is some kind of postcode that they use in, I guess, in Britain, and these are not capital, and we want to convert it to something like that. And string convert is used there, this one, and it takes some arguments, so we can I guess say that we want to convert it to uppercase, and so we do this. You can also use something called proper case, which I guess is a little bit more selective. It doesn't make everything uppercase. But anyway, okay. So going back to our discussion about what a module is, the point about creating a module is to house all your subs and functions, and is that they are in a separate file. You could write more subs and functions for your module, ones that validate text coming from a text box, an email checker, for example, or one that uses the proper case string conversion. You would then have all this code in one file, and you could add to totally different projects. So you'd have this file, and you could use these functions lots of different lots of different projects. If the subs and functions were in the same code for the form, so if we didn't separate it into a module, you'd have to import the whole form. You'd have to import the whole form before you could use these very useful subs and functions you've created. Okay, so that's how you can store everything in a module and then make sure that they're public, and then you can just import these a module that you have into a new project so you can use all your functions again. Okay, next we're going to talk about a discussion about events.